I'm here with Jim Rogers, who's a very well-known investor around the world and author of Street Smarts, which is about his adventures in investing and traveling around the world. Thanks for joining me, Jim.
I am delighted to be here, David, and I look forward to this.
Yeah, there's a lot of things have happened in the news, and you've been a voice of some clarity over the years for myself and those who share an interest in a free market rather than a rigged market. And there's a lot of rigging going on. So I wanted to turn to you to kind of get your perspective. You're joining us from Singapore, correct?
I am in Singapore. Yes, it's now nearly 10 o'clock at night here in Singapore. It's almost tomorrow
Wow.
in Singapore.
What's the perspective for you, first of all, from a local vantage point in Singapore? Let's start there.
Well, we're all locked in. I mean, it's very difficult to go out if you if you have to go to the doctor or groceries or something like that. But basically, it's difficult to go out. They say they're going to open up, and schools are closed. My daughter does school by internet. They say they're going to open up more and more. They started yesterday. We will see. It's not my way. I wouldn't have done it that way, but who cares? We'll
Right.
know in 2 or 3 years which way was better. The
Right.
Swedish way to stay closed, or I mean to stay open, or the other way to close up.
So meanwhile, there's a lot of unprecedented territory that we're seeing here in America. Of course, we've got a raging debate going on in the political scene. Now it's become a political thing whether to wear a mask or not wear a mask, or whether to be locked down or not be locked down. You said your sentiment, your intuition would be to not lock everything down in general, but I guess you're taking more of a pragmatic. Let's see what happens with all this, huh?
Well, David, we've had epidemics before. In 2009 in the U.S., we had the H1N1 epidemic. They didn't close McDonald's. They didn't close Delta Airlines. The world went on. Yeah, some people suffered, but the world went on. Human beings know if there's an emergency, if there's an epidemic, okay, we should not go down to the singles bar and pick up girls or pick up boys. We should be a little bit discreet and careful in what we're doing. This has happened before many, many times. I give human beings more credit than perhaps some other people do.
So, from a market standpoint, the Federal Reserve has created what $6 trillion to try to deal with this, and then there's this, Donald Trump is saying, hey, would be nice if we would look at negative interest rates to keep up with all the goodies going on at the other central banks in the world. So, how do you see that playing out right now?
David, there's an election in November in the United States. None of those guys care about you and me or other people or young people. Or my kids. They care about the election. They want to print and spend and borrow as much money as they can to win the election. You know, what's going to happen? We're all going to pay a very difficult price because afterwards, the amount of debt that has been added, America was already the largest debtor nation in the history of the world. And in the last month, they have added staggering amounts of debt, and they continue to add more, and they're printing more money. Nowhere in the history of the world has that kind of action done good things. Maybe in the short term, it does good things, but nowhere in history has it done good things in the long term.
You famously have said in the past that perhaps the next 21st century here may belong to Asia in some sense because of their actions in terms of saving, investing for the future, making things, manufacturing things. Has your position on this changed in light of recent circumstances, or only fast forwarded into that perspective?
Well, David, I don't like saying it. I'm an American. My family, we're all Americans. But look out the window. You see what's happening. Asia seems to have handled this much less badly than we have in the US. The Asians are not adding, well, Japan is adding staggering amounts of debt, but other Asian nations are not going nuts, not printing huge amounts of money, not spending money they don't, I mean, they're spending money, but nothing like what we are in the US. I mean, history is history. I didn't say Asia is going to be great because I wanted it or because I cared. I didn't really care.
Right.
I'm just looking at the world as it is, and I can see what's happening. And yes, I mean, David, they have a very high savings rate in Asia. They have a very high investing rate in Asia. And every economist in the history of the world, including Karl Marx, knew that you have to have capital and save it and invest it. So this is, I mean, again, I don't like what I'm saying and what I'm seeing, but Asia is doing a less bad job than we are in the US.
Yeah. This is a time for people looking outside of conventional solutions. I know some people have turned towards, of course, the classic hedge against the dollar for folks, gold and silver. Others have looked towards, cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin and Ethereum. Do you have any perspective on the Bitcoin play or anything in that world that looks interesting to you?
I know about it. I don't own any cryptocurrencies. Many of them have disappeared, as you know.
Mhm.
Some have done extremely well, but many have already disappeared. My view is that they're all going to disappear. David, 100 years ago or 80 years ago, we could use anything we wanted as money. Banks could print their own money, actually, legally, 100 years ago. Use sugar cubes, gold, silver coins, whatever you wanted. Then the Bank of England in the 1930s, which it was the most important bank in the world at the time, said, from now on, if you use anything for money except our money, it is an act of treason. Well, treason means they execute you. So needless to say, people stopped using other things. That's going to happen with these currencies as well. All money is going to be on the computer, but it's going to be government money. I mean, David, in China, it's already on the computer. You cannot take a taxi in China with money. You cannot buy an ice cream with money in China. You have to put it on your computer, on your phone. It's already
Yeah.
there. It's happening in some parts of the world already. And that's what's going to happen. It's going to be on the computer. It's going to be on the phone. But it's going to be government money. It already is in China. China's already come up with, just last week, their own official money on the phone.
Right.
I don't like this. First of all, governments love it, David. It gives them more control. They will call you up one morning and say, David, you drank too much coffee this month. Stop drinking so much coffee. They'll know everything you do, when you do it, where you do it. I mean, I hate that. They love it. You know, money's expensive. You have to print it, you have to transport it, you have to account for it. No, money's expensive. So they would love to get rid of it, but they mainly would like to have better control over all of us. So money's going to be on the computer, whether we like it or not, but it's going to be their money. Now, the crypto guys say, David, wait a minute, we're smarter than the government. And they are. But the government has the guns. Just like in the 30s, the Bank of England said treason. Bank of England had the guns. It was treason, whether we liked it or not.
Yeah. That's interesting because people are looking for a kind of underutilized play. They're looking, oh, maybe if we get into cryptocurrency, if enough of us get in there, they won't be able to stop you. But like you said, all it takes is a law, and it might be difficult to refuse their request that you only do things in their digital currency that they have administered. So um, we shall see how that plays out.
Well, David, if they can overthrow the government and get rid of all the laws and give us more freedom, hallelujah, hallelujah. But they better get a lot of guns because
do
the
you
governments all around the world have a lot of guns right now.
Do you think there's a lot of folks in high places in the West that just emulate and love the China model of planned capitalism? Is that just something that they've been planning for us for a long time, trying to get us in that direction? Or do you think it's just going to happen that way because convergence or something? It's just
Well, at the moment, China has been the most successful country over the past 40 years. I mean,
mhm,
these are pretty simple statements. It's not an opinion.
right.
All you have to do is look out the window and you can see what's going on. Many countries around the world see the facts and like it. in Washington right now, they of course bash China. Whenever things go wrong, David, throughout history, no matter what the country, they bash foreigners. It's easy to bash foreigners.
Right.
Different skin, different hair, different language, different clothes, different food. They smell bad and their food smells bad. Oh my God, some of the things that politicians have said throughout history. That's what's happening. Some people seem to be upset with China because it's successful. I would love for America and China to continue to work together. We have for the past decade or two. Now, all of a sudden, Washington is using China as an election ploy. The Republicans have said, I mean, this is not Jim Rogers talking, the Republicans have said, we're going to bash China. That's how we're going to win the election. Is that good for the world? Historically, it's not, but that's what's going on. Instead of saying, wait a minute, guys, why don't we all get rich together and have more prosperity together? It's easy to bash the foreigners. It's happened throughout history all over the world, and it's happening again.
What do you say to folks that would say, well, we do need some kind of tariffs and protection because they haven't played fairly in the way they, can get their products done so below our standards of, wages and regulations and environmental, protections, that we've got to balance that a little bit with some tariffs to balance it all out a little bit.
Well, I would like
Even
to
some
have
free market
support.
people, even some free market people have said that, have moved in that direction.
Well, I would certainly like for America to produce things as cheaply and as high quality as Asians do. It would be wonderful. But show me, David. I mean, are we going to start buying American motorcycles again, except for Harley Davidson, which is, very, very cool? Are we going to start buying American shirts again? I mean, if somebody in America can make shirts as cheap and high quality, by all means, I'm quite happy to buy them. But the facts are we going to buy American TVs again?
Yeah.
I mean, David, I don't think Zenith can compete anymore in the TV market. If we can do it, by all means, hooray, hooray, hooray. But it's not just, I mean, it's not some kind of evil people out there. People are working hard. They work for low wages because they want to raise their standard of living. 100 years ago, we did it to the English. 100 years ago, shoes were made in Midlands in England. And in the Northeast, New England, and even in the South, we started making shoes so much cheaper, so much better. And the English said they're evil, disgusting, horrible people. They work for peanuts. But we did it, and we became the most successful country in the 20th century.
Right.
Did the English like it? No. Did we like it? Oh, we loved it. We loved it. We became rich. Our standard of living rose everywhere. That's the way the world has worked for thousands of years, David, whether we like it or not. Now, if we can figure out a way to bring our cost of production down and our quality up, of course. So, David, you go do it. Hang up now. Go do it. Start a factory making shirts as cheap and as quality as the Asians do. I'll buy them. We'll all buy them.
Yeah. I'm more interested in energy. I read the book by James Dale Davison, The Sovereign Individual, and he talks about the role of technology and how markets and what he calls the logic of violence, meaning how much coercion can states get away with, is often mediated by what technologies are available to the average person. And he talks about like the musket. When the musket came out, that tipped the scales to allow peasant farmers to have some balance with the British Empire. Before, war was done by folks with chivalry and knights and metal and all this fancy stuff that the folks in the everyday world didn't have access to. And then you have the American Revolution. So then you look at today, one of the things that I think needs to happen, and of course people always say it, so the proof is when it happens, is we need to have nuclear fusion or something that could change the game for energy to make it too cheap to meter. I think that perhaps would be a pioneering direction to go towards, so that folks can get off the grid and have their own energy supply without relying on foreign wars to regulate the market, or their local utility government agency or what have you to take care of their energy needs. What do you think about that? Is that something that could
David, you're
change
going
the
to be
game?
very, very busy. You're going to make us new shirts.
Makes
You got new energy. You'll be
right,
extremely busy. I hope you can pull it off. Yes,
right,
of course. If we could all, if energy were more individual and accessible, like muskets were at one time, then of course, but somebody's got to do it
right.
before it's going to happen. And the muskets, of course, the people who wrote the Constitution said, listen, we need to all have our own guns to protect us from the government. That they weren't doing it so they could shoot people. The
Right.
reason that the amendment was passed was so that the people could be protected from the government,
Yeah.
because those guys knew that governments normally are pretty bad people. That's why we have the amendment. Um, it's not because the founders of the United States were some kind of evil, disgusting people. They were smart. They knew we needed protection from government.
So if you were in your 20s or 30s here in America, what would you be doing? What would you direct people to look at, knowing you've been all over the world? And of course, you've ended up in Asia, so maybe that's the solution. But for folks that, maybe they're going to stay closer to home, do you have any ideas, given what you know about how markets work and how
Well,
these
as
things
you
work?
know, I've driven around the world twice. I spent 5 years driving around the world because I wanted to see the world close to the ground and find out what's really going on, not what the propaganda says, not what the TV says. So I did it. Uh, I hope everybody can travel. It's certainly the best education you'll ever get is to go out and travel. You can read about country X, or you can go there and see the truth, and you'll find out that normally the truth is different from what TV or the propaganda says, no matter what country and what government we're talking about. So yes, I'm keen on that. I see that Asia is booming. Um, they work hard, they save their money, they discipline their children. David, they discipline their children in Asia. When was the last time somebody disciplined children in the United States? So, I mean, these things are happening. As I said, history is always changing, whether we like it or not. And the way I see the future is, like it or not, that Asia is doing better. So I moved here so my daughters would speak Mandarin. I didn't move here because I loved Asia or something. I moved here because I realized I couldn't teach them Mandarin successfully in New York. We were doing it, but it wasn't going to work 100% unless we moved to a place where they had to speak Mandarin. So here we go.
What's something that you believed before you went on your travel adventures that you no longer believed after you experienced your adventures?
Well, we can start with China. The first time I got off the plane in Beijing, I was scared to death. I had been told all my life that the Chinese were evil, vicious, bloodthirsty, horrible people, and I figured I was going to get shot as soon as I got off the plane. It didn't take me long to figure out that the Chinese were hardworking, educated, disciplined people who wanted to succeed, who wanted their children to succeed. It took me no time to figure that out, but that's been true of nearly all my adventures. I find out that, hey, what we've been told is not true. You drive across Russia now. I don't know I know what we were taught as children about Russia, but since 1989, when the Berlin Wall fell, that Russia's long gone, long gone. If you go there, you'll see an entirely different world. So travel will teach you that sort of thing. And the first thing is, please don't believe propaganda. Nobody's propaganda. Japanese, American, Russian, German, don't believe anybody's propaganda because they all lie. And if you ask me what I would do, I guess what I would do over again, in 1984, in the 80s, I rode around China and I came back and I said, this is astonishing what's happening. course, everybody thought I was nuts. If I'd really been smart, David, or even now, I would make sure my children learn Chinese, and I'm doing that. I wish I'd been smart enough to learn Chinese back in those days.
Wow. Um, and did you ever have any harrowing experiences on traveling? You know, things that were a real dicey situation that you wrote about in your book?
Well, you can read about my books. I was held hostage in Africa, in the Congo, for 10 days or so once. I went through war zones. We went through 15 war zones. Uh, no, there are plenty. This is not driving to Salt Lake City for the weekend, David.
Yeah.
I mean, this is driving around the world, and I shouldn't be alive. I shouldn't be here now. I'm delighted I'm alive. Looking back on it, it was spectacular. But no, I shouldn't be alive. I shouldn't be anything.
Yeah.
But it was a great adventure and a very great learning experience.
Wow. Yeah, that's something that Werner Herzog says the world reveals itself as you travel it by foot. If you see it, you see a whole new perspective where you can just go by foot down a neighborhood or across a town sometimes, you know, and just see how it unfolds itself to you.
I don't know who it was that said that, but he's exactly 100% correct that way. You cross a border out there in the jungle, you'll learn a whole lot more than if you fly from one international airport to another or just sit and watch TV. Go out there and do it, especially from the ground up. You'll learn it all.
Did it change or shape your perspective on human nature and human beings in traveling to all those different countries?
That's an extremely good question. No matter where, first of all, before I go, people would say, "Oh my God, you're nuts! You're going to get killed. Why don't you just fly around the world?" And I said, "No, I want adventure." But David, everywhere we went, people would say, "Where'd you come from?" I said, "We just came from there." And they said, "Oh my God, those are evil, dangerous. You should be dead." Then they said, "Where are you going next?" I said, "We're going there." "Oh my God, you're insane. You're going to get killed going there." We all have this image and we're terrified of other people. And if we just went there
Right.
or came from there and we all ate and drank and danced together, we'd realize these people are just like we are. They may eat different food and wear different clothes, but they're just like we are.
Mm-hmm.
Be wonderful for the world, wonderful for the world. But the way it is now, of course, politicians can stir up hatred and animosity, and they do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've noticed that same thing. You go to one country and then the next neighboring country. I remember in one particular situation, they said, if you go over there, you're not going to make it. And then I was going to leave the next day. They said, you're not going to make it. You're going to be done. So,
and here you are.
That was in the Middle East. And to be fair, there was a terrorist attack like 2 weeks before we were supposed to go there. So, but anyways, it all worked out. Here I am. And,
well, first of all, I can see you're still alive. But yeah. One thing, I have learned, if the terrorist attack was 2 weeks ago, it's a very safe time to go.
Yeah.
Because it's already happened.
Yeah.
You know, everybody's scared and careful, and not much is probably going to happen to you. If there's been no terrorist attack for 2 years, then you should worry.
Yeah.
But if there was a terrorist attack or a tornado or anything 2 weeks ago, usually a safe time to go.
Well, Jim Rogers, it's been a pleasure talking to you, and I appreciate your perspective. I share a love of travel and a love of liberty with you, so it's always great to hear your insights and hear a voice that's consistent through the years, even in this tumultuous time where we feel like we're in the end of some era of America heading towards another. That's how it feels for a lot of folks on the ground right now. So.
Well, we should be careful because there are big changes coming. The United States is the largest debtor nation in the history of the world, and the debts are going straight up. So this is going to cause changes in all of our lives going forward. So everybody should be worried. If they're worried, they'll become knowledgeable. They will figure out what's going. I mean, they'll watch A Neighbor's Choice and learn about the world or whatever their source. and then maybe they'll get prepared and they'll survive. I mean, people can make fortunes in bad times if they're prepared. So I hope they all get prepared and they all make fortunes.
Well, I appreciate your time and thanks again for your insights.
Thank you, David. Let's do it again someday.
Very good.
Bye-bye.
Bye.